Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fabulous live session with GEP. I am Priyanka Musa, and with me is Paul Wicklin, who is our in house expert on travel category. And yes, by that, you guessed it right. Today's session is going to be all about travel. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Priyanka. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm very pleased to be here. Happy Friday to you all.
Oh, yes. Happy Friday to you as well, Paul. I think we couldn't have picked up the better day than Friday because the moment we hit Friday, people start planning and packing their stuff to go either on a vacation or they have some family commitments or simply business. And that's the essence of the weekend beginning, right, Paul?
Oh yes, I can remember a fond memory before babies, kids, teenagers, and all that sort of stuff, where you used to sort of book a weekend retreat on a cheap airline, crash in a cheap hotel, meet lots of strange people, have a great time, and yeah, come back with all that experience really.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, since the focus of today's session is not vacation and meeting strangers, but just business travel in Europe, and if it is going to be better in 2023, let me ask you this. According to you, what is the future of travel this year? And I'm talking about looking at the market factors, like how is going to be travel in 2023?
Well, 2023, it's definitely not a clear picture. The economic outlook has weakened. It now includes expectations of a mild recession this year. So, some firms will respond to weaker conditions by reducing business travel, and this will temper the recovery. However, even with the headwinds of a mild recession, we do not anticipate significant reductions in business travel. This is largely because many companies are still in the process of resuming business travel, and activity has not yet recovered to pre-pandemic levels.
Right.
Um, this can be reflected from results in a recent survey. Only about 25% of European companies are considering limiting business travel because of economic challenges, while average airfares and hotel rates are both poised to rise more than 8% in 2023.
Okay, very interesting point made, Paul. This begs the question, though, with whatever is happening due to post-pandemic and recession, how are companies managing their policies now? And is this going to change with travel slowly returning to normal?
Yeah, that's really good. There's some statistics I've got here. Let me just share these in regards to my comments. So, in a survey, fewer than half of executives, about 42%, report policies in place restricting business travel because of the pandemic. So this is down 50% from the findings that were in Q2 2022. So this is declining. So most frequently mentioned policy restrictions include fewer business trips. This is about 67% of the surveys that were taken. A new sustainability requirements and metrics, about 44% in the survey that was taken. So there's a greater proportion of larger companies have implemented cost controls or spending limits. That's about 60% of those large companies
Wow.
compared to about 17%. So this is likely to be economies of scale greatly impacting the spend.
Well, I didn't know that before. I mean, 60%, that's a huge number. Even the 44% you just mentioned, I mean, anything of that amount should really reflect into, I think, the budget and the policy change that we are doing right now. But I wonder, what does this mean for the virtual model? Because from past 2 years, we were following a virtual model, which obviously was saving up a lot of budget and making a lot of changes in the company policies. But is it going to become an obsolete option now, or will the hybrid continue? And the companies will factor in the virtual plus on premise when they will do the budgeting this year, or while they're deciding the company policies.
Well, what's interesting really, again. what we're finding from talking to a lot of businesses, about approximately 1 in 4 business travelers, they're just unsure whether they will make a trip for purposes such as a customer meeting or trade show over the next 6 weeks. We're still trying to figure out what's going on post-COVID, really post-pandemic. The most
Mm-hmm.
frequently cited reasons for business travel, and certainly were video conference substitutes and
Mm-hmm.
company cost restraints. So to use a sort of fairly new term, a hybridized approach is
Yeah.
likely to remain popular for meetings and events throughout 2023. And what's really significant, and a really good thing actually, is that it's encouraged business people from all over the world to take part and allow them to get a taste of what it would be like for future attendance, either online or in person.
Right. Fair enough. I think having a hybrid model is fair enough. It's also it doesn't put too much cost pressure on companies, and I think companies can put that cost into something furthering their business. So I think that's fair enough as an ask. But looking at that, like looking at the hybrid model, I wonder what's the status of pricing. For example, say airline fares, right, or airline market, or hotels for that matter. Is that going to change drastically like it happened in 2020 and 21, or what's going to be?
Well, GEP have conducted several airline negotiations for our clients, and in Europe, we're finding airlines are willing to provide a fixed discount, somewhere between 2.5% to 4.5%, in exchange for a contractual commitment guarantee of volume. Volatility in their cost structure and operations is still very present, as I said earlier, as they try to figure out what's going on after COVID and get their operations, back to a level to manage that demand. Really, oil price, as we know, they're around 50% higher now than in 2019. That's a big rise.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the unusually high spreads between jet fuel and crude oil prices and the limited refinery capacity potentially that prices are going to stay high in 2023. Now, staff shortages due to post-COVID growth and in addition operational challenges have put pressure on passenger capacity as well.
Mhm, mhm. So, what I heard from this is that you're saying that both the resource capacity, which has been reduced due to pandemic, plus the 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 decision made on chemicals to be used, the shortage in the supply, both together will become a cost factor in 2023 for especially airlines, for example. And that's, I think, a very crucial point that you made. But that leads to another query. Given the circumstance that we just discussed, can we expect leveling out the demand and supplier profitability this year? And I'm just focusing in 2023. Can we become profitable?
Um, yeah, absorbing current high impact cost increases like fuel, electricity, energy, even exchange rates now remain are going to remain a challenge and may impact consumer and or airline margins. In Europe, airlines should return to profitability. The forecast is somewhere late 2023. However,
Mhm.
full market recovery to pre-pandemic levels, that's forecast and expected to happen around 2024 for Europe. Um, Airlines are implementing sustainability strategies and initiatives through carbon offset options as part of the booking process and have set goals of cutting CO2 emissions from aviation by, I think it's around 55% in
Wow.
2030. So
Okay.
following 2 years of major pandemic disruptions, the hotel industry, this has rebounded significantly with rates. So these have already increased in Europe, somewhere between about 8% and 14% on average compared to pre-pandemic levels. So
Yeah.
staff shortages, inflation, and the pressure to maintain quality services, and also these green policies that are coming in now, are really impacting hotel prices and revenues. So hotel meeting pricing forecasted, the forecast is to increase during 2023 in Europe. So they've recognised the opportunity to expand by offering meeting rooms as part of this hybridized or sort of hybrid culture. As a result, the number of meetings and events have jumped and are increasing significantly.
Right. So basically, we will see profitability towards the end of the year, but because of all these market drivers, I see only a small margin of profit coming through various channels, whether that's airline or hotels. And that's fine, right? Because we are still getting back to the normal, and it probably will take another year and a half to become, as pre-pandemic we were. I wonder, you just mentioned sustainable approaches that are being carried out in a lot of places in Europe. And I think maybe using that can increase the profitability index for various places, or for various organization within travel. But for that to happen, my question to you is the awareness of sustainable measures growing in Europe to the point of real implementation, or is it just still at the greenwashing stage, just talking about it and not much to implement?
Yes, that fabulous term now. That'll be the term of the 2020s, greenwashing, I think. So, look, from a survey that was taken, about nearly 9 in 10, around 86% of corporate execs leadership report their organisation has sustainable corporate travel policies in place. Okay, so how tangible they are, it's difficult to tell. But the most common policy is to request employees to minimize transportation. Okay, that's the easiest way to save the earth. That was about 40%, 47% in those policies that were surveyed. Okay, so an environmentally aware approach to business travel programs is at the forefront for many travel buyers now. Okay, it's ensuring a level of sustainability in decision making is a key part of sourcing strategies. Okay, and this is only third to list of planning priorities that are now important that they were pre-pandemic. So really, sustainability is also having a direct impact on choice of venue. Okay, so where meeting planners, admins, where they're choosing to hold their meeting. Okay, in total, 89% of travel managers say this particular factor influences which hotels they book as part of their programs. Okay, with almost a third of them claiming sustainability concerns play a significant part in selection.
Well, that's a huge number, and I'm happy to hear that changes are happening in Europe market, and due to the consumer behavior, uh, I mean, there can be a huge sustainable transformation that can happen in this year. But to that effect, what are the GEP's recommendations to procurement leaders and industry in general to make the positive changes in travel for 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, so from a procurement perspective, volume consolidation is more important than ever to gain negotiation power through accurate data, as the market is still facing, as I've mentioned earlier, many uncertainties as we come out of COVID and travel starts ramping up. And I was talking to somebody in the hotel industry this week. They're still trying to figure out COVID and post COVID and what's going on really. So inflation, which we all know about as well, that's going to have a significant impact on business travel demands, and travel may be reduced if inflation exercises too much pressure on companies' profits. Soaring prices could, in addition, curb consumers and businesses and reduce that demand. So from a GEP recommendation, we're talking to our clients. Organizations either reduce their travel by implementing stringent pre-trip approval tools. Do you really need to travel for this meeting? Can it be done virtually? And travel trackers, using those tools are really useful. Extend the 2019 contracts, terms and conditions that they have with their incumbent supply base. Also, The pandemic had a significant impact on travel, as we all know, resulting in a change of mentalities that
Yeah.
makes the travel reduction easier, okay? Because we've all proved we can do our jobs sitting from home, a lot of us, in regards to these types of
Wearing
situations.
pajamas. Wearing just pajamas.
And companies and employees, they're looking for smarter travel options and lower emission providers to align with emerging environmental mindsets. And finally, regarding contracts extension, if companies are unable to extend their current conditions, GEP's recommendation would be to extend the range of key routings wherever possible, and to use it as a negotiation lever instead of the travel volume that may still not fully come through from 2019.
That makes sense. Well, while we are talking about recommendations, Paul, a lot of great questions are coming from our live audience. So let's just take them up one by one, I would say. The first question is coming in from Nishant. He's saying, what impact do you think the emergence of new variant of the virus, such as H3N2 influenza virus, will have on business travel in 2023? Good question.
Well, I mean, the talking from a TMC perspective, TMCs have sort of transitioned in regards to the sort of services that they've been provided post pandemic. Clients are requiring more support in regards to more on demand and duty of care in regards to the emergence of these viruses, which impacts travel and demand and capabilities. So, for example, in isolated areas, there's emergence of these new viruses. How do we manage that? And so TMCs need to be proactive. They need to have their visibility across the market and identify where there's potential impacts on outage of travel. Where flights may be cancelled, hotels are closed, or any of that. This is still going on in China, let's remember. And also, they need to advise and manage that part of those trips that are going to be impacted, that, and find alternatives for the clients, really. So it's very much a type of proactive activity now in looking out into the market and identifying what is going to come through and be a potential challenge for anybody traveling to that particular area, really.
Yeah. I have another question. So Europe is not just one, but a confluence of a lot of cultures and a lot of languages together, right? Which also means companies, supply chain practices, and procurement is all different in different spaces. Like Germany has their own, France have their own, UK has their own, right? So to have a sustainable change in terms of travel, whether it's policies, whether it's the change management in mentality of people who wants to do business travel or don't want to do business travel, what can be key factors that can help achieve that? Can it be one? Will there be many? How are we going to approach this whole situation?
So I think education and the sort of transition. We're still in transition from COVID at the moment. It's really difficult because I've taken a few flights, I've stayed at hotels, and it's been challenging because the difficulty that we have at the moment now is there's been a lot of staff laid off, over COVID.
Right.
And combine that with, there's a lot of technology that's been added into the travel management particular space.
Right.
And in the past, when there's been challenges, or technology hasn't worked, or there needs to be more resources thrown at a particular challenge, TMCs and travel suppliers, they have those sort of human resources and people to
Right.
pivot and throw to that challenge to manage that. At the moment, there's a real lack in those resources, so they're running quite lean. So if there's any challenges, it's difficult to sort of pivot those particular people, human resources, to manage that challenge. For example, if there's an outage on technology and you have to do things manually, they really struggle because they're still trying to figure out post-COVID. They're still trying to source. For example, there's a real lack in pilots. So traveling on flights now, It's quite volatile that flights get cancelled. Okay, I've had that experience traveling quite a lot from the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So they're still trying to, fill a lot of roles and FTE gaps that are causing some of the challenges in not being able to service the actual customer in these places, really. So it's
Right.
still transitioning out of COVID, really.
Yeah. I've also heard a lot of train strikes happening, airplane strikes happening because of the same reason, because there's lack of FT, lack of resources, and sometimes lack of funds as well to to keep the
Yeah.
flights and trains on the moment, on the moving. But I wonder if that's just within Europe. I hear a lot of trains and planes getting cancelled between, say, if I need to travel from Germany to France or from UK to someplace else, or is it globally, like from global perspective, like somebody wants to travel in and out of Europe altogether? Is this going to also affect that, or is it just about this whole Europe space as a region?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. Across the whole sort of region, there's we all know that energy prices have gone through the roof,
Yeah,
inflation is really high. There's been difficulties down in Iberia as well in regards to the weather impacting even food shortages around that. So there's a lot of issues that is impacting travel on around that. So some places are worse than others in regards to that. But at the end of the day, inflation is creeping up, cost of living is creeping up,
yeah.
and we're all struggling around that. And businesses are struggling, and they have to be very innovative. They have to do more with less. And it's a real challenge until things start to level out. Really, it's still going to be quite unstable, I think, through 2023.
Perfect. So if I were a procurement leader, I have to understand that there's going to be flight delays because of the FTEs not being there, a lack of pilots, or all this, all the un unhinged economy that's there already, right? So if I have
Yeah.
to create a travel plan, for example, for some of my executives, what is one or two key things that I should keep in mind? Is it the timeliness of the plan? Is it the budget of the plan? What it should be? Because I think a lot of our procurement leaders would want to know that.
Yeah, I mean it's the usual sort of recommendations that we give. Book ahead and always have a plan B if plan
Right,
A is not going to work in regards to travel, because travel, it's a different world than 3 years ago now.
right,
You have to plan far more. You have to have a contingency plan through that.
true.
I mean, thank goodness we do have very sophisticated virtual tools now that you
Yeah,
can have a hybridized meeting, as I said, really, that can be a backup to a face to face in regards to that. There's nothing like having a face to face meeting, but what we're finding is that, generally people are having virtual meetings, and then when they want to have a QBR or a specific meeting to discuss about growing a relationship and engagement or a severe challenge that needs to be addressed, that's when they get on a plane and they go face to face, really.
well, I agree with you. I think there's, I mean, we discussed a lot, and I don't have any more questions, but I think that whatever we just talked in last 30 minutes does put a lot of light on how the travel is going to be and what all should we as a procurement leader and traveler in general should keep in mind while doing our planning and everything that's related to in 2023. Perfect. Thank you, Paul, for taking time and sharing market insights with us. Lots of key takeaways for me and for our audience. Before I end the session, do you have any last words to say to give it to our audience? Any conclusion
Yeah,
you want to make?
yeah. I'd just say, just be patient when you travel. If things go wrong, don't take it out on the poor workers. They're trying to do their best, because I've seen plenty of it happen. So just
True
be
that.
patient, guys.
True that. Well, thank you. You heard Paul. What needs to be done? You need to be patient and you need to honor the economy that we have right now and the challenges. Thank you all for tuning into this session. In case you have more questions or you need to connect to make procurement function better at the organization, do not hesitate to connect with me or Paul. We do have more insights for you, by the way, in another session, but that's for life science coming up on April 5th. Till then, Take care and do not forget to follow GEP. Bye.
Cheers.